Hey everyone, and welcome into another video. Before we dive into this one, I just wanted to quickly ask for your assistance with the channel's growth. We're getting oh so close to that 100 subscriber mark, which will allow me to finally get rid of that awful looking URL. So if you like this video or the others on my channel, then please hit the subscriber button, hit the like button, and ring the notification bell to receive updates on future videos. Thank you everyone for your support thus far. Right then, on to the video, and in this one we're going to talk about World War III from developer Farm51. This is a game that has been in development for some time now and has had somewhat of a rocky road up to this point. Released originally way back on the 20th of October 2018, it came out with a fairly large amount of hype, I think it's fair to say. It was said to be the game that DICE never made, another Battlefield 3 or a 4 or a sequel to those games. But it was in trouble early on. Poor development, rocky tests, various issues with the game, problems with development, problems behind the scenes meant that the game was eventually pulled from the Steam store completely, with access to the game severely restricted. I'm unsure if it was just those who bought the game that were allowed to access it whilst the developer continued to work on the game behind the scenes, but either way, they clearly felt that they could not consciously continue to take people's money with the game in that current state. Fast forward time, and the game is now back on Steam after an extensive rework, and on the 3rd of February, running to the 7th, they had a public stress test to record data and test out their servers. This gave me the opportunity to dive into the game for the first time in probably 18 months since they did a free weekend on the previous product that was then pulled from sale. I played a reasonable amount of this, enough to get to grips with it and form an impression of the game, and whilst there were definitely some negatives here, there's also plenty of positives as well. Let's start with the good for a change, and please bear in mind here that if you're watching this having had hundreds of hours in the game already over the years, your opinion may well be different than mine because you've been involved much more in the development of this game, having seen it kind of grow across the years. I'm basing mine on the here and now, without the benefit of witnessing all of those changes across the time. But the here and now is what most of us will care about, so is this game any good? Well, first of all, I will say that the game ran really well. It was smooth, I had high frame rates, with very little to none at all of any kind of hit reg issues. There was no lag, there was no glitches. In fact, I noticed practically no bugs at all, outside of a few connection issues where the game left me in a constant loop of matchmaking, connecting to the game before throwing me back to the main menu to then try and join the same game again. That happened like twice, but that was literally it. I didn't see any graphical glitches, nothing in the game that was annoying me or, that was noticeable. The game is a mix of sort of Battlefield 3 and 4 style gunfights in reasonably close quarters with vehicular warfare on top of that, with the added little sprinkling on the top of the cake of Call of Duty style kill streaks. The mix works quite well. In my time with the game, I never felt like there was anything that was too powerful. Like, vehicles are not overpowered in this or anything like that, and the kill streaks are not just crazy like they are in Call of Duty at times where they're just being called in left, right and centre. The kill streaks themselves are actually quite hard to get, so the really powerful ones, the sort of the top bracket ones, they are achievable, but the chances of getting those are quite low, that most players will only get them once, if at all. As mentioned in my 2042 rant video, the gunfights are often way too short in that game, but in this, and the way the map is designed, you're often getting into some really great fights, and with the respawn system being quite quick, you can kind of get straight back into the action or get right back into the heat of the action really quickly. This means that you get quite hard and drawn out fights over capture points that give you quite a satisfying feeling if you manage to then capture the objective. Then there's the gun customization system, which I may go as far to say is one of, if not the best in any game that I have seen. I really like the one in Insurgency Sandstorm, and of course you got the obvious choice in Escape from Tarkov, but with Tarkov you have to have like an insane level of knowledge as to what attachments go on what gun, just because of the sheer amount of them. So whilst Tarkov is a deeper system, World War III seems to have the blend absolutely perfect for me between the deep level of customization and just the general click here to attach this to a gun sort of style. And it's really good and looks fantastic, and it's really easy to navigate, and it appears that there are tons of options to pick from and scroll through. The guns themselves look fantastic, and the gunplay, whilst a little more on the arcadey side, as is the whole game, which from what I read is a slight step back for the game, I'd say overall it still feels pretty good. The movement is nothing spectacular, but again does the job, and it does have a lean system and also the ability to go prone and double press forward or back to flip onto your front or back and do a 180 and potentially fire at enemies who sneak up behind you. That's a really nice thing, and I have to say I did use that once or twice, and then hearing something behind me I was able to just double tap back quickly and my character would flip and do a 180, go onto his back, and then be aiming straight behind him. That was a really cool little addition. Unfortunately, in the game at the moment, there are only a handful of maps and 2 modes which were present. Those modes being Spec Ops, which is like a conquest mode, and Team Deathmatch. Those were the only 2 that were available, but they were fun enough. Now onto the not so good stuff. Progression is quite slow, and given the amount to unlock, it feels like there's a chance that this could be one hell of a grind. Graphically, this game isn't that impressive. I'd almost go as far to say it looks a little dated at times. The guns themselves and the models of the guns look brilliant, but the rest of the game just doesn't impress too much. But it's passable, I guess, but it's certainly not going to be winning any awards. The UI is a little cluttered for my liking. It's nowhere near as bad as, say, Battlefield 2042, but the scoreboard, for example, has an awful lot going on, and it can be difficult to disseminate the information you're looking for at times. However, the single biggest issue with this game, and one that could really stand in its way in the long run, is the sound. The sound design in this game is absolutely woeful. There's just no other way to say it. The guns might look great, but the sound is so unimpactful, it is crazy. There's just nothing to them at all. They sound so bad compared to the other gun games out there. I'm thinking like Insurgency and Tarkov, just to name but 2. And even vehicles, they were often sneaking up behind me and blew me to smithereens without me ever really hearing them. And even their gunfire is muffled and subdued as well. Footsteps, thankfully, are just about okay in terms of being able to hear them, but directional audio at times can also be quite tricky to work out. This is an area that has apparently gone backwards quite a lot during development, with the sound design previously being quite good, but thankfully the devs have acknowledged this issue, and hopefully progress can be made ahead of a release. So is this a Battlefield killer? The answer is no, not yet, but it can be. I think it can run 2042 very, very close. Partly down to the potential of the game, but obviously also down to how bad 2042 is, and the shooter space is a really crowded area. With the obvious failings of Battlefield 2042 and COD being quite stale, there might just be room for another shooter of this size. I have said previously that we should steer away from AAA games and instead support projects that are more about love and less about greed, and hopefully this is one of them. With more polish, this game, and with a better audio design, this game could be really, really good. Whilst my experience at the start was a little rough, it really grew on me and I had a lot of fun during my time with this. Even though there is nothing new here at all, it is fairly simplistic in its nature, I think that actually kind of works in its favour. If you're looking for a game to innovate and push the boat out, you're not going to find that here. My one big concern for this game is that there have been a number of shooters over the years that have gone down this free-to-play model that don't do much to innovate, don't do much to stand out from the crowd, and unfortunately become stale quite quickly and really lose their momentum. There was a COD clone not long ago, I think it was called Iron Sight, that was fun for a while, but it just faded away because there was just nothing to it. It became such a grind and just an overall microtransaction fest that everyone stopped playing it. And there was, I think it was Black Squad was another one that was very similar. People still play them, but I suspect that the player counts are very, very low on those now. The game is currently on sale for £12 on Steam, and all that gives you is access to the game here and now. Currently this game is due to go free to play in March, and whilst that free to play tag does concern me from a monetization point of view, we do have to take the approach of innocent until proven guilty. So let's wait and see how they do it, and if done correctly, I don't mind that. But even for £12, I think this game is good value right now. There is a lot to unlock, with taking into account what I said about the grindy nature of the game. But there are lots of guns to try, and even though that there's only 4 maps and 2 modes, I think for £12, I think that's not bad at all. I think that you could justify that. But if you would rather wait, then you don't have long to go before you can jump in risk-free to see what you think. That's it from me. I did have a ton of fun in this, so I would definitely recommend you keep this one in your crosshairs. There is actually talk of a console port and potentially crossplay, which will massively help the player base, but potentially introduces a plethora of other issues depending on how they do it, with things like aim assist and all the other bits and pieces that can throw up. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out, but it does at least show that these developers are serious about this game and its roadmap in the medium to long term. Thanks very much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.